Here we see the family, all the children at that time, on the front porch of their home in Willow Springs, Missouri. The family was almost, but not quite complete when this picture was taken. February 26, 1915, Jewel Dorene, the youngest of the family, was born in Willow Springs, Missouri. This picture shows the entire family in Springfield, Missouri in 1916 or 17. This is Ruth, 16 or 17 years old. This is Blanche, about 14. The twins were approximately 11 at that time. Ray was approximately 8. Mayfield was 3 or 4. And Jewel was probably 1, 1.5. Grandma and Granddad. Aunt Pansy says she remembers coming home from school one day in 3rd grade at Willow Springs and Blanche greeting her at the door and saying, "Guess what we've got? And if everything goes right, we'll have it for a long time." That's how she remembers being told that Aunt Jewel was born. She also remembers the house next door where she and Mother went to play frequently and where they learned to crochet and tat. This picture shows Grandma and the 6 children on a visit to Missouri to a boyhood home of A.T. The house is outside Lebanon, Missouri, near a family cemetery where Brandons and Lewises are buried. Here we see the first 4 children with grandmother Lewis. Here we see Mayfield and Jewel. They don't look too happy about asking to be posed that day. Here are Granddad, Mayfield, and Ray outside their house on Euclid Street in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Here are Granddad and Ray on a motorcycle. Granddad sold these, and they were named Near a Car, and they nicknamed it Nero. According to Uncle Mayfield, it was difficult to steer because you couldn't tip it to round a corner because it was built more on the lines of a car. Here are Grandma and Aunt Jewel all bundled up to go out and play in the snow. Here we see Grandma with one of her last visits with her brother John Mayfield. That's his wife, Aunt Grace. Aunts and uncles played a large part in the lives of the Lewis grandchildren. played a large part in the lives of the Lewis children. Here we see John Mayfield, home from World War I, holding Aunt Jewel. His buddy, Mr. Brown, is holding Mayfield. Here is Uncle John Mayfield's uniform, but that doesn't look like him, does it? Ruth has dressed up in his uniform. This may prove prophetic, as we will see later. Here we see the family with a visit with Uncle John Mayfield. Whether this is his car or A.T.'s car, I don't know. But I've been told that A.T. owned the first car in the county there around Stoutland, Missouri. Here he is, obviously the same day, in a picture with the twins. This picture was taken when Uncle Mage Lewis and Uncle John Mayfield were visiting at the same time. That's, again, Jewel with Uncle John. Lucy and A.T. and Uncle Mage. Another picture of John Mayfield when he was much younger. The other man is unidentified. What is written on the back of the picture you'll see in a minute, probably written by John Mayfield's wife, Grace. It looks like he still fits into his World War I uniform. Remember Grandpa's half-sister Josephine from this picture? She's shown here with her husband, Andy Barlow, who lived south of Lebanon on a farm. This was a favorite place for the Lewis children to visit. Mother says that she always enjoyed going there because Uncle Andy frequently would invite the kids out to do things with him, and that way they got out of doing dishes. She also remembers very fondly being there one time when there was a hailstorm, after which he said, "Let's get the buckets," and they went out and picked up the hailstones and made ice cream. Remember Pete, the little boy, pictured between his parents? Here he is as an older man, shown in a picture with Josephine, Uncle Andy, Grandma, and Aunt Eva. Another favorite place to visit in Missouri, and this was a favorite for more than one generation, was the Wilsons' home in Missouri. Here we see Johnny and Maud, Aunt Nan, and Uncle John Wilson. Nan was a half-sister of Lucy Lewis. When my cousin Bobby and I were in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in there, Aunt Ruth and Aunt Jewel got real brave and took us for a weekend to visit Maud and John Wilson. I can remember the fabulous biscuits that she baked on her wood stove. The next picture we'll see Pete, Major, A.T., and I'm not sure whether the other one is John or not. Left is Uncle Pete. On the right, Uncle Major, A.T., and perhaps Uncle John. Another favorite place to visit was in Weatherford, Texas, where grandfather's half-brother Jasper lived. In this picture we see Grandma, Granddad, Aunt Jewel, and some of their relatives there. These also stick back there, sticking her head over Aunt Jewel's shoulder. In this picture, we see Uncle John Lewis and his wife, Uncle Jasper and Aunt Rosette, Granddad and Grandpa. Pictures are taken on the same day. We see Uncle Jasper, Granddad, and Uncle John. I don't know what the plants are that they're standing next to, but they certainly are interesting. In this picture, we see Uncle Jody and Uncle Jasper, two of Grandpa's half-brothers. I think Jody stands for Joseph Skates, Jr. Here we see my sister Billy on a visit with Aunt Jewel and Aunt Pansy to Texas, being taught to milk a cow by her great-uncle Jasper. Just a few years later, here am I with Aunt Rosette out to feed the turkeys. When I was 6, Aunt Jewel took me on the train from Kansas to Texas to visit Jasper and Rosette and their daughter Ivy, shown here with her niece Jewel and me. So we have Jewel Dorene, and Jewel in the picture shows Jim Mayfield, Grandma's half-brother, and his wife Rose. He and his brother Harrison both lived around Nevada, Missouri, and went blind, as did our grandmother later in life. By 1936, the family has greatly expanded and taken on new dimensions. Aunt Ruth, Aunt Blanche and her husband, Uncle Roger Settle, Aunt Pansy, Violet, my mother, Merle Koval, my father, Billy Louise Koval, my older sister, Uncle Ray and Aunt Ethel, Uncle Mayfield and Aunt Florence, Aunt Jewel, and now we can really call them Grandma and Granddad. And in December of 1942, Aunt Pansy married Uncle Forrest, and all the in-laws, aunts, and uncles were complete. Here we see Grandma and Aunt Jewel on a visit where Mom, Violet's in the doorway, Grandma standing below is holding Billy Louise. By about 1942 or 43, the number of grandchildren had grown to 6. This is Billy Louise Koval, daughter of Merle and Violet Koval. Janet and Charles are the son and daughter of Blanche and Roger Settle. Jewel Dorene, Billy's little sister. This is Bobby. This is George. They're the sons of Ray and Ethel. Janet and Billy and I really were very lucky. Being the first 3 grandchildren, we got an awful lot of attention from grandparents who were younger than they were for the grandchildren that came afterwards, and a lot of attention from all the aunts and uncles.